It's an enormous pleasure to be here with very, very distinguished candidates. You're looking at the Victoria team, the Lower Island team going to the House of Commons of Canada. Look at them there. Good team. There we go. But you're here because of your yearning for change. You're yearning for change. You're yearning for something better than what you have. You're yearning to be heard. You're yearning for action on the things that matter to you. Let's be clear about something. It's a Liberal meeting. We're proud to be Liberals, but I suspect in this room tonight, this fantastic, historic building, there are people who support the Green Party. There are people who support the Conservative Party. There are people who support the NDP Party. And I want you to know as clearly as I can how welcome you are in this meeting tonight. Thank you. You got to listen to what you're getting from Stephen Harper. From the very beginning, he has made one simple appeal to the Canadian people. He has appealed to one emotion throughout: fear. Fear. It's astonishing what he tries to make Canadians afraid of. Some of it's kind of funny. Last summer, it started since he's been in power, but last summer, he found a thing to be afraid of that I don't think anybody in this room had ever been afraid of before in their lives. And that was the census. I take fear seriously. Life is a scary business. There are some things to be really afraid of in life. You know, and we face them. But the census? You know, he was trying to say a census taker is going to come. He's going to ask you intrusive questions, and if you don't answer, you're going to be taken away in chains. You know, and so that is the kind of appeal to fear that's Canadians struck as absurd. Now we have an election, and the appeal has been all to fear. That is, you must give me a majority, or the economy will go straight to hell. That's what he's saying to the Canadian people. And by the by, he's saying, I'm going to take credit for the Canadian economy. Thank you very much. And what riles Canadians is they know who should take credit for the Canadian economy. It's the Canadian people who should take credit for the Canadian economy. Not to mention 13 years of Liberal government. I mean, just by the by, just while we're at it, Paul Martin, remember letting the deficit down? Mr. Harper keeps telling you, we've come out of the recession in better shape than any other G8 country. Mr. Harper, that's because we went in better shape than any G8 country. But it's all an appeal to fear. It's all an appeal to fear. He then waves that hobgoblin of the coalition in front of you. Be very frightened of a coalition. And I've said if you vote for the Liberal Party, you're voting for a Liberal government composed of Liberal members of Parliament enacting a Liberal platform. It's as clear as can be. All fear, all fear. And today he did two other examples of the politics of fear. One of them was, let's just remember what date this is, by the way. This is the 29th anniversary of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This is a great day. And Mr. Harper gave a speech in, I think it was Vancouver, saying we got to crack down on refugees. We got to crack down on those people arriving in boats and try to conjure up a picture of the shores of Canada besieged with people coming ashore. And every second, everywhere you look, there's a refugee arriving. And they're jumping the queue. And you think to yourself, and his solution, this is the point, his solution is to lock up people without trial or due process for up to a year. On the 29th anniversary of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Let me tell you something about that proposal. It's against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it's against our international obligations under refugee law. And as far as I remember, we are a country based on the rule of law. And then the other thing he did about fear today was, you may have heard something about Pauline Marois in Quebec. She's got a support from the more radical wing of her party to start cranking up the sovereigntist and separatist debate in Quebec. And so Mr. Harper got up and he said, Well, you absolutely have to give me a majority government because I'm the only one who can deal with the massive threat posed by Pauline Marois. You thought, oh, this is the Prime Minister who understands Quebec so well that he wants to get rid of the gun registry, which all Quebecers support. This is the Prime Minister who understands Quebec so well that he says all Quebec artists are spoiled children. This is the Prime Minister who understands Quebec so well that he's not shown respect for the right of a woman to choose. So, excuse me, Monsieur Harper, we love our country. We think its unity is strong. We have nothing to fear at all. And this country is not going to be bullied and intimidated and pushed into voting for Stephen Harper. That's one of the reasons you're here tonight. Against fear, there's only one word: hope. We have to be the party of hope in this election. We have to capture the yearning of change which has brought you to the room tonight. And the hope has to be practical. It has to be realistic, and it has to be affordable. One of the great things about Canadians, you're going to offer them hope, you better tell them that it is real. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Have I got it here? Yeah, I've got it here. This here is hope in book form. This is the Liberal platform. But I just want to dwell on a few things that are in it, because this is hope in distilled and realistic form. One of the things that has happened to many of you that changed your life was access to post-secondary education. One of the things that made most difference to you, changed your life most thoroughly, was the chance at college and university, and Victoria has some of the great universities of our country. But we know that many Canadian families, it's just too expensive. It's out of reach. Many Canadian families did not go to college and post-secondary. They think it's out of reach. They think it's a dream for somebody else, not their child. Not now. Too hard, too difficult. And so what we've come up with is what we call the Learning Passport. And the Learning Passport says if you open an education savings account for your child, a Liberal government will put $4,000 in it for every child in your family so that they can afford the cost of college and university education. That's the start. And if you're from a low-income family, it goes up to $6,000. And this is on top of everything else that Canada, the federal government, offers in student loans and assistance. This is new money. This is $1 billion, the most significant one-time investment in the future of our children made by any political party in the country. And that is what I mean by practical hope for Canadian families. So that's number one. And number two, early learning and child care for every single Canadian family that needs it. You can't have an equal society unless every single child gets the chance at a great start. It's the best opportunity program we've got. It's the best anti-poverty program you've got. If you want to get kids off to a good start, you want to get them from 8:30 in the morning to 4, in which there's a place where they learn, they don't have to worry, they don't have to be afraid, they don't have to be hungry, they can be secure. Early learning and childcare is a passionate cause of mine. We'll make this country stronger and will create hope from 18 months right on. That's practical hope. Families want to take responsibility. We're the only party saying we've got to have a national approach to home care, which means that right now you can't get more than 6 weeks leave from your work to care for a relative at home. That relative has to be dying for you to get that leave. We want to change that rule so you can have 6 months compassionate care EI that you can take any time you need. 2-week bursts, whatever. And we'll pay $1,350 per family to help with the home care expenses. This is where healthcare is going. It's going into the home. A federal government that cares has to understand where healthcare is going and has to help Canadian families shoulder their responsibility. Speaking of healthcare, today I announced that our party, if we have the honor to form a government, will summon a meeting of the provincial premiers with the Prime Minister within 60 days of taking office so we can begin to plan to renew and reform the Canadian healthcare system. Not in 2014. Not in 2014. But this year, this summer, now. It's too important to wait. Mr. Harper proposes to spend $30 billion on fighter aircraft. He proposes to give large corporations a $6 billion tax break. He proposes to build $13 billion in prisons. The conclusion that anybody looking at those numbers draws is there won't be enough money for health care. We've made a choice to continue to invest in the system with a 6% increase every year. When we meet with the provinces, if I have the honor to form a government, we will be planning how to finance, sustain, and reform the healthcare system for the next decade. That's what Paul Martin did. That's what we have to do to face the challenges of healthcare for Canadian citizens. We have to protect Canada's oceans. We have to protect, yes. We have to protect our water. We have to protect our watersheds. We hold this in sacred trust. The candidates here have made this so clear to me. Every time I'm in Victoria, everybody has. This is the city in Canada with the deepest and most passionate environmental commitment of any community in the country. You should be proud of it. You've got to have a government that understands that is committed to the tanker ban in the North Pacific, that is, yes indeed, that is committed to creating thousands of green energy jobs by enabling Canadians to retrofit their homes. Get an environmental retrofit. We will help you refit your home to get your energy costs down. The key to Canadian economic performance, and Mr. Harper has said you got to choose between the environment or the economy. We're saying we won't have an economy unless we go green. And this is where we have to go. There's one other thing that I see everywhere, a yearning among Canadians for us to regain our place in the world. A passionate feeling that something has gone badly wrong when every single Prime Minister since 1945, since the founding of the United Nations, has managed to secure a seat for Canada on the Security Council of the United Nations. And Stephen Harper is the first Prime Minister to fail in that task. It's a symbol of everything else. That kind of slow slide in which we lose the place we once occupied, in which we begin to feel apologetic about our country on the world stage. I haven't got all the solutions to that, but the one thing I know from having been across the country in rooms like this is that one of the secrets of our country is if we did a poll in this room tonight of the number of languages other than French and English spoken by Canadians in this room, we'd soon have 50, 60 languages. We're one of the most international countries on earth. It is one of the glories of being Canadian. The idea we have to have a foreign policy that understands some simple ideas. We're the most international society in the world, and so we're the society with the greatest number of bridges to communities around the world. We've got a young generation. You go to the University of Victoria, all they want to talk about is how I can get to Kenya, how I can get to Bangladesh, how I can start working in some developing country. Tapping into the immense, surging idealism of young people is what a federal government must be there for. If you go over and serve overseas for 150 hours of public service, I'll take $1,500 off your student debt. How about that? I'd like to have a Canadian institute that promotes democracy overseas. But here's the thing. If you promote democracy overseas, you better respect it at home.